Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy? Sports and Fitness Rants. I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Got another great video for you guys today. As usual, you guys know the deal on this channel, man. We must continue to set the record straight, guys. We must set the record straight. And in this video, we're going to speak about JJ Redick. And once again, JJ Redick knows more about hair gel than JJ Redick knows about the history of the NBA, guys. This is not about basketball, the history of the NBA. The history. These guys do not know the history. They don't understand the history. They do not care to understand or know the history of the NBA. Guys like JJ Redick, Gilbert Arenas, and some of these other clowns out here on podcasts and on these websites and stuff, man. These guys don't know anything. We're going to talk about JJ Redick in this video. And I want to thank you guys, man. Everyone across the world, everyone across the states, guys, has been supporting my channel. I am truly, truly humbled, guys. Much respect to all you guys out there, guys. Much respect, man. Shout out to everybody in the membership. Thank you, guys, man. We must continue to set the record straight. We must continue to stand up against the lies and the narratives. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, we've done videos. I've talked about JJ Redick before on this channel. And I've told you JJ Redick is an idiot, man. He's a clown. He knows nothing about the history of the NBA, and I've talked about this before, right? These guys don't know the history of the game. They might understand the game when they played in it, but they don't know the history of the NBA. They don't understand how the game was played in the 50s or the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Even some of these guys, they act like they don't even know about the game from the early 2000s, right? And when we think about a JJ Redick, guys, right? And I tell you that he knows more about hair gel than he knows about the history of the NBA, these are the facts. Think about some of the things that JJ Redick has said over the last several seasons, man. I mean, this man claims that LeBron James is on another level from Michael Jordan. This one right there exposes them as not understanding the history of the game. Because any real basketball fan knows that LeBron James is nowhere close to Michael Jordan. So for someone like a JJ Redick to make an assumption or a claim that LeBron James has passed Michael Jordan or he's close to Michael Jordan or that Michael Jordan wasn't that great, this lets you know right there, guys, that they're, one, disingenuous. They're not giving you the facts because they do not care to know the facts. They don't want to know the history of the game. They've never done homework. JJ Redick, I believe, was born in '84. He's 4 years younger than me, guys. All right? So there's really no way that he knows about the 80s Michael Jordan. No way. And there's no way that he really knows about 90s basketball. I told you guys, when I was growing up in the 90s, man, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, JJ Redick would have missed some of these years. And obviously, he was not watching the NBA. Listen, just because, once again, you played in the NBA does not mean that you know the history of the NBA. You studied the game, right? Doesn't mean that you watched it growing up, really. You may have played it. Doesn't mean that you understand or remember the history of the NBA, guys. I remember this stuff. When I listen to JJ Redick speak, he does not come across as a guy who actually watched these games. So once again, I tell you, these guys are disingenuous. They're not trying to give you the straight facts or the education. They're giving you their narratives and what? The lies. And that's how they want you to form your opinion. So when you guys form these opinions, you look stupid because you formed your opinion off of lies and narratives, not off of reality, off of the bending of reality. This is why the narrative sounds stupid when you hear people say Michael Jordan would be DeMar DeRozan in this NBA. These are people listening to guys like Gilbert Arenas and JJ Redick talk about the 80s and the 90s competition, how these guys were slow, right? They were unathletic. They had no skills. These are narratives, guys. These are not facts. These are straight narratives. Those are not factual at all. These guys didn't have any skill. So basically what they try to tell you is anyone could have made the NBA back in those days. Anyone could have made the NBA. Right? Me and you could have made the NBA. We just didn't try. That's how it comes across, right? The plumbers, the taxi cab drivers were playing in the NBA. This is JJ Redick exposing himself, right? This is why someone like a Bob Cousy, a Jerry West, right, call out a JJ Redick when you never hear Bob Cousy say anything. That should let you guys know everything right there. When Bob Cousy comes out publicly, the way he did, right, to basically shut down JJ Redick, that lets you know that these people are so far off. When was the last time you guys heard Bob Cousy ever say anything about anybody? The man's almost 100 years old. I didn't even know he was still alive. And he came out to speak up against the lies that JJ Redick was spewing because it was lies, guys. This is not his opinion, and Bob Cousy's coming to the defense because of his opinion. He was literally tearing down an entire era of basketball players by saying that they were taxi cab drivers and plumbers and they worked blue-collar jobs. Once again, JJ Redick coming across as an elitist, right? Looking down on the common folks, the hard-working blue-collar people, by denigrating them and making it seem like jobs like plumbers or taxi cab drivers or a masonry worker or any of these hard-nosed jobs, these blue-collar jobs, is beneath him, apparently, right? JJ Redick grew up in a privileged life, I'm assuming. Once again, he's always more concerned about his hair when he played than the actual game on the court, actually playing with some grit, some toughness. JJ Redick is a soft clown who does not have the history knowledge to be speaking the way he speaks on past eras. I told you guys, if JJ Redick wants to speak about his era, the 2010s, or this current era, this clown show we're watching, by all means, JJ Redick, speak about this, because this is how you played the game, like a soft clown, a three-point chucker who didn't play any defense, did nothing else on the court. This is JJ Redick, guys, but he'll speak about the all-time legends and call them plumbers and taxi cab drivers. And that's literally what Bob Cousy said. Who is JJ Redick to talk down on the all-time great players like Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain, Jerry West and Willis Reed, Nate Thurman, Bob Pettit, George Mikan, right? Joe Folks, these guys who came in the 50s, the 40s, the 60s, right? This is JJ Redick, guys. He'll never tell you, right? I've told you guys in the past, he'll never tell you that these guys, like a Paul Arizin, fought in the Korean War. They won't tell you that. They won't tell you that Elgin Baylor was in the Army while he played. They won't tell you these things, right? Because why? They don't want to talk down on military members, right? Because that would make them look real stupid. But they'll talk down on plumbers, taxi cab drivers, because that fits their narrative. That makes them look lesser people, right? But when you say, yo, these guys were war veterans, they were heroes and basketball players, they don't fit their narrative all of a sudden, right? Because these guys come across as real men, which they were. Guys who had heart, grit, right? Guys work side jobs and play in the NBA. These guys today can't even play 82 games. Could you imagine JJ Redick having to play 82 games of an NBA season and then when the season was over, go work a blue-collar job? Could you imagine JJ Redick ever working a blue-collar job? No, JJ Redick would never, man. Once again, he's more concerned with the hair gel and his hair and the way he looks than actually playing the game. This is JJ Redick, man. These are the clowns, man. But people will listen to JJ Redick's podcast and they make it seem as if he knows what he's talking about basketball. Once again, he might know the X's and O's of some of the things that he's covering, right? Like I said, more recent stuff. But once you hear him speak about past eras, this is when they get exposed, guys, of not understanding the history of the game. So when you hear someone like a JJ Redick or a Gilbert Arenas talk about the quote-unquote lack of skills from players in the 50s and the 60s, they'll often point to a Bob Cousy and say that Bob Cousy couldn't dribble with his left hand, right? Or the way that they dribbled was silly. They'll make fun of them. Oh, these guys dribbled like this. Little do they know that back in them days, that was the way that you had to dribble the ball because they actually enforced carrying and palming violations in the NBA back in them days, right? You had to be tighter with the handle. You couldn't do all these sweeping crossovers and through the legs, behind the back stuff as much. You had to dribble the ball the right way with your hand literally on top of the basketball at all times. So I want you, JJ Redick, to go outside right now and you demonstrate dribbling the ball the way it's supposed to be dribbled by NBA standards, by the real standards of basketball. And you dribble the basketball and you show me that you can play better than Bob Cousy did, or you're going to look different than Bob Cousy did on film. Little does he know that Bob Cousy, once again, these guys are pioneers, right? They didn't have film to study. They didn't have anybody to look up to. They were the pioneers, guys. They were the first ones. And Bob Cousy was called the Houdini of the hardwood, guys. He was ahead of his time, this man. Right? What do you have? 7, 8 straight assist titles? But JJ Redick will tell you he's just a plumber, taxi cab driver. He had no skills. No skills, these guys. Remember, all you're seeing in this era today, all this dribbling and all this crazy stuff you see, this is not skills, ladies and gentlemen. Shooting from three-point range and dribbling a lot is not skills. Those are not skills, man. They're really not, okay? Those are not skills that are going to translate to anything. Do we need to see crazy dribbling? No. Once again, I've told you guys, Michael Jordan didn't have to waste all this energy dribbling all over the court to score a basket. He was precise. He didn't have any wasted energy. See, today in this game, these guys like James Harden, Kyrie Irving, some of these other guys, Luka Doncic, they can expend all this energy dribbling all over the court and doing all these skills because they're not playing any defense. They're not worried about defense. So they use all their energy on the offensive end and they rest on defense. That's not a skill. You're not impressing me at all with this kind of stuff. Once again, they're not calling the carrying violations or the palming. They're not calling the traveling like they used to back in the days. So the game might look more skilled to an outsider. But once again, if you know the game, then you understand these are not skills, right? These guys are less skilled. They don't have what? The fundamentals. Because when we think about the fundamentals versus skills, this is where they get exposed to JJ Redick and a lot of guys who try to pump this era up as being more quote-unquote skilled. It's the fundamentals that are going to get you there. It was Michael Jordan being fundamentally sound, right? Larry Bird, right? A Bob Cousy, a Bill Russell. The fundamentals of these men, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, Tim Duncan, it's the fundamentals of these men. Remember, these guys, most of them went to college for several years, so they learned the concepts of team play, to play in an actual system, to what? Play both sides of the court, right? This is what they learned, and they learned the fundamentals of basketball. Boxing out, the pivot foot, right? Not taking more than 2 steps is a travel. NBA these days, these guys forget this stuff. Everyone's taking 3.5 steps now. Back in the day, you took 2 steps and you went up for the shot. Now it's 3.5 steps up for the shot. These guys lack the fundamentals. Their footwork is not as tight because their fundamentals aren't tight. No one's boxing out for rebounds anymore. The defense is completely gone, so there's no one who practices defensive shuffles or defensive stance, right? No. Guys are flopping around now. They're load managing now. But this is the greatest era, the most skilled era. These guys are bigger, stronger, faster. Once again, JJ Redick is giving you a bunch of lies, a bunch of narratives, guys. These guys are not bigger, stronger, faster. That's the facts. They're not more skilled, right? They're not more skilled. And they damn sure don't have the fundamentals of past eras. They just don't, because the game's not being officiated the way it was back in the day, which allows these guys to what? Slack on the fundamentals. I mean, hell, when I grew up watching basketball in the 80s and 90s, teams would run full court traps, full court presses, half court traps, right? They ran actual systems. This was the NBA, guys. It was more balanced. Guys had post-up games. You had defensive players. You had high flyers, right? You had three-point specialists. The game was just balanced, guys. Like I said, you had coaches that coached, ran systems. The Eastern Conference was different than the Western Conference. The Eastern Conference was known for being a more physical, slower-paced conference. The West Conference was known for being a more, up and down the court, run and gun type of offenses, higher paced play, right? Now that's physical. So you had balance. What we have now is not balance, but what do they tell you? They try to sell it to you as they're more skilled. What you're watching now is more skilled basketball, so you guys need to enjoy this. This is what JJ Redick will tell you. He'll tell you the guys in the past couldn't move their feet. They were slow, things of that nature. Meanwhile, Nikola Jokic dominates his era. How fast is Nikola Jokic? Is he the greatest athlete in NBA's history? No. Right? Would he be fast in the 90s? No, he would not. Luka Doncic, is he a supreme athlete? Is he super fast and quick? No, he's not. There are many players in the 90s that are way quicker than Jokic or Luka Doncic. A lot of guys. But they'll tell you that these guys were slower. They weren't as, great athletes back in the day. And they make it seem like these guys were playing basketball 100,000 years ago. The NBA's only been around for 75 seasons, guys. They ain't been around that long. But they want to act like the human evolution in the NBA has, evolved millions of years in a matter of 50 years. Once again, JJ Redick does not know the history of the game. He doesn't know how the game was played, how these guys played the game. They'll just say things, Michael Jordan was shooting open shots every time he was wide open. They couldn't stay in front of Michael Jordan. Once again, they take away from Michael Jordan's greatness by taking down his competition. This is what they do. You never hear them give you the honest fact, guys, of past eras. They must always tear down the past eras to what? Lift these guys up. And that should let you know. That's the red flag, guys. It exposes them. We never had to lift up or tear down the 80s or the 70s to lift up the 90s. And I never heard anyone when I was growing up tearing down the 60s or the 70s to lift up the 80s, guys. I never remember that. I told you guys, I used to hear people talk about Bill Russell all the time in high regard. When I was a kid in the 80s, guys, Bill Russell retired in 69, but they talking about him in the 80s. Same thing with Will Chamberlain, man. I told you, Will Chamberlain, when I was growing up in the 80s, was like a myth. Anytime that Michael Jordan broke a record, it was always an asterisk there because it was Will Chamberlain that they did not include. It was always, pre-merger. You guys remember that? If you remember growing up, anytime Michael Jordan set a record, they always had to put an asterisk there to say pre-merger because Will Chamberlain literally owned every offensive record there was. These guys were still respected. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was considered the greatest player of all time. When I was young in the 80s, into the 90s before Michael Jordan became that guy. Some people thought it was Bill Russell still. Some people thought it was Will Chamberlain. Some people thought it was Magic Johnson, Larry Bird into the 90s. Right? So no one was tearing these guys down to lift up Michael Jordan. What they were saying was, there's just no way that we can say that Michael Jordan is the greatest anymore. He earned it. He earned it, and we gave him that title. We, the people, gave Michael Jordan that title. They did not say, oh, who did Magic Johnson play in the West? Who did Magic Johnson do? Who did Larry Bird had all his help? He didn't do anything. You never heard that. Michael Jordan was aiming to surpass Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. He understood their value and how great they were and what they meant to the game and how people respected them. No one tore them down to lift Michael Jordan above them. No one did this. All of a sudden now, right? All these years later, guys like JJ Redick, these ex-NBA players, remember I told you guys, not only are we fighting against the media, we're fighting against these ex-NBA players who do not want to tell the truth. They have sold their integrity and the honor, right? For money and fame, for views, right? JJ Redick was an irrelevant basketball player, so he has to make himself relevant by these hot takes and these stupid, these stupid points that he makes. Same to the Gilbert Arenas. These guys are not relevant anymore, so they must become relevant on YouTube or their podcasts by saying some crazy stuff that's not factual to get the idiot people who don't know any better because they don't know the history of the NBA either to agree with them. Remember, these guys do not know the history of the NBA, guys. Do your own homework. Do not listen to JJ Redick. He's more concerned about his hair gel and all this other stuff than he is about giving you guys the straight facts, man. This man is paid off. He never says anything factual. I've never heard him say anything factual about any past eras. You guys know the deal, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.